Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the true power of attitude. Why your attitude is more powerful and more important than your intelligence. Why your attitude can make a difference in your personal life, your professional life, and in every single day and in every single way. Now, let me give you my first warning. If you think this is one of those seminars where we just feed you a lot of fluff and you get motivated and maybe walk out using these skills, you would be wrong. Let us spend the next 30 to maybe 45 minutes discussing who I am and my credentials. Now, of course, we're not going to do that. What is important for you to know, though, is that this is about you. But here's a little bit of information about me. So my name is Glenn Daniels. I'm a native of Denver, Colorado in the United States, born and raised there. And I have nearly 30 years of experience in the speaking industry. I've been able to work with various industries across the globe, industries such as the United States military, Air Force, and Army. I've had the experience of working with nonprofit organizations, government organizations, security organizations. I don't think you can name an industry that I haven't been involved in. From cannabis all the way up to maybe even funeral homes. I've had that pleasure. I believe what's most important is bringing skills and techniques to the table. You need skills and techniques to have a powerful attitude. Have you ever been in one of those situations where you just have had enough? You need skills and techniques, and that's my goal for the day. What you do not need is fluff. You do not need that fluff, that soft skill thing. I'm going to bring you skills and techniques with maybe just a little motivation to use those same techniques, but not the fluff. And if you will, allow me to share with you what is the most important thing to me. And that is my grandson. This little dude is the world. So here is the outline for today. We're going to begin the day discussing 100% responsibility and what that means to you. Then we'll have a discussion about why your attitude is more important than intelligence, period. The power of attitude with Captain Susan, which you'll discover is one of the most powerful women on this planet. And then we're going to figure out how to apply this to your morning ritual so you can have each day start off in a powerful place. And then we're going to talk about how to apply it to your staff so that your staff sees that you have a powerful attitude and they want to rise with that powerful, positive attitude as well. 100% responsibility. There are many gurus out there, many people out there who will tell you that you personally are responsible for 100% of everything that goes on in your life. Here's my question to you. If that was true, if you stepped up to the plate and you owned 100% responsibility for every aspect of your life, what would your life be like? What would happen in your life? How would it feel? Where would you be if you stepped up to the plate and say, I own 100% responsibility for everything that takes place in my life and in my world? I'm sorry to say this, but you can't do it. You cannot be 100% responsible for everything that goes on in this world. Are you 100% responsible for the tornado? Are you 100% responsible for the hurricane that hit or the earthquake? You can't do it. And to try leads to nothing more than stress and unhappiness. How many of you are familiar with Mark Victor Hansen? Raise your hands. Oh, wait a minute. That doesn't work here. In case you're not familiar with his work, he's also the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Souls books. But how many of you recognize this formula, E plus R equals O? Are you familiar with that? E plus R equals O. Now, this is the formula that you need. E plus R equals O. The event plus your response equals the outcome. That formula, E plus R equals O, leads to three things that you are responsible for. And only these three things. And if you live a life that works on these three things and you hold yourself personally responsible for them, you will have a life of greatness, an attitude of power and grace. You are responsible for what you do. See, it's you who decide what you're going to do, what action you're going to take. You are totally responsible for what you do. Number 2, you are totally responsible for what you do not do. So you make the choice if you're going to do something or if you're not going to do it. And those things you are responsible for. No one else is responsible for those. Those are your decisions, what you do and what you do not do. And then there's number 3, how you react to what happens. See, you're in charge of how you react. It's not Billy Bob who did something wrong or who was late coming to work. It's not Sally who did this, who did that. It's how you choose to react to certain things, to everything. You're in control of that. So here they are. What you do, what you do not do, and how you react to what has happened. Those are the 3 things that you're 100% responsible for. And when you get hold of those 3 things and you start acting like and having 100% responsibility of that, your life will be great. But more importantly, you will have a positive attitude because it all comes to you. You're in control. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. This is all that you can be responsible for. This is it. And I want you to understand that these 3 things are the underlying principle, kind of like the operating system of your attitude. You are responsible and you're 100% responsible for these 3 things. You want to reach the top? You want to be the best, balanced, happiest person with the most power and grace? This is it. Once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far... Oh, wait a minute. That's the wrong story. Once upon a time, in July, the last week of July, I was taking a flight from Los Angeles to Honolulu. Now, I fly a lot, and I never, ever get on an airplane unless I know this airplane. But on this particular day, I had a feeling that something was not quite right. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't think it had anything to do with the airplane. I just felt something was not quite right. I actually called a friend of mine and told her, there's something wrong. I more so thought something was happening with her. But there's something wrong, and it just doesn't quite feel right. So we got ready to board this flight, 5 hours from Los Angeles to Honolulu. Now, let me give you a little side note right here. A few years ago, when my daughter was young, she looked at me one day and said, "Daddy, you're the second biggest nerd on this planet." And I said, "Well, who's number 1? She said, "I'm not going to tell you, but you're the second biggest." Well, just a couple years ago, I went back to her again and said, "Hey, who is the number 1 nerd? You say I'm the second." She goes, "Well, you're still the second, and I'm still not going to tell you who the number 1 nerd is." Now, there is some truth behind that because I study things, I learn things that are just kind of nerdy in nature. And as this day goes on, you're going to see some of those nerdy things come out. But I never get on an airplane unless I already know that airplane, and I mean know it. I know where all the exit rows are. I know which exits have the life rafts on them. I know how much the airplane, I just know everything there is about an airplane, and I don't get on it unless I do. Now, what this causes for me is I generally zone out and don't listen to the flight attendants. Well, I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but they used to play a game called Halfway to Hawaii. And the passenger who could guess the closest to when you were halfway to Hawaii would win a prize, a bottle of champagne or something. Well, me, I could figure that out before we left the ground because I knew the things I needed to know and had my answer written in my hand and went to go hand it to the captain of the airplane before we even left. While people were getting on the airplane, said, "Here is my answer to the Halfway to Hawaii game. May I please have my bottle of champagne now?" She goes, "Oh, no, sir, we don't play that game anymore." "No, ma'am, it's right. Look, it's right." She looked at it. "Yeah, but I'm sorry, we don't play the game anymore." It was right. I don't listen to the flight attendants because I know to keep my seatbelt on. So I don't listen to them. I zone them out. But now I'm mad at the captain for not letting me play the game anymore, so I'm not going to listen to her either. I zoned her out as well. Ready to go. Ready to board this particular airplane. The aircraft we were using that day was a 777-200 extended range aircraft, one of the heaviest commercial aircrafts in the world. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, nerd alert. The 777 200 series aircraft is 209 feet and 1 inch long. The wingspan is 212 feet and 7 inches long. When the airplane is empty, it weighs 304,000 pounds. Its maximum takeoff weight, when it's fully fueled and loaded, is 656,000 pounds. Fully loaded, it holds over 45,000 pounds of fuel. Nerd alert over. We had about 2 hours left to go in our flight from Los Angeles to Honolulu when Captain Susan came on the PA system and she said 3 words. Even though I said I wasn't going to listen to her anymore, those 3 words made me sit straight up in my seat. Simply the words were, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we all know ladies and gentlemen usually means look out the left-hand side of the airplane or look out the right-hand side of the airplane. But the way she said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know we were in serious trouble. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to divert our landing today and land in Kona, Hawaii. Now, my geek jumps right up. What do you mean? Honolulu is closer. The reason why I knew it was closer because I already looked at the flight plan. I knew the route we were on. I knew we were on a little bit more of a southerly route, which meant Honolulu was actually closer. Why are we going there? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to divert our landing today and land in Kona, Hawaii because the right engine will soon stop working. I'm still in my geek mode though. What do you mean? I need to get to Honolulu. Honolulu's closer. If we're having problems with this airplane, we should go there. What I didn't understand at the time though was that if an aircraft is ever in danger of crashing, they will always divert it away from Honolulu. Only because Honolulu has so many planes flying from too far away to get there. So it's better to divert one plane away than to try to have to divert a whole bunch of other things away if something went wrong. Had we had enough fuel, we would have returned to Los Angeles at this point. But we were well past the halfway point, so it's decided Kona, Hawaii is where this plane would divert to and land. Ladies and gentlemen, when that engine stopped working, you could feel the difference in the airplane. You could feel the difference in the airplane. We lost 12,000 feet and 200 miles per hour within the next 6 minutes. We were gliding toward the Pacific Ocean. Emergency was declared, and the Coast Guard and the Navy were dispatched to come find us because we were going to be in the water soon. Let me ask you a question. Could she afford to give up at this point and just say, okay, let's put it in the water? She could not, and she would not. Here's my question for you. You have people on your team who you feel like you should just quit on. Why don't they just quit this job? Go get a new job. They don't belong here. You cannot afford to give up on them. You cannot afford to quit, period. You cannot afford to quit being the leader you need to be, no matter how hard, how difficult it is. 12,000 feet of altitude lost. 200 miles per hour of altitude lost. Now, I want you to understand this. This airplane is designed to fly on one engine, but there was something going on that particular day that caused that engine that was not working to act like a parachute on the airplane, or like someone had dropped this anchor from that high up into the water and was dragging us toward the water. She could not afford to give up in this situation. The Coast Guard and the Navy were on the way to come get us. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't afford to give up. Captain Susan, she could not afford to give up. Captain Susan is all of maybe 5'5" tall. Red hair, fiery as she could be. You cannot allow yourself to feel helpless or the victim. She couldn't allow it, and you as a leader cannot allow it. Don't stay helpless. The second part of having a powerful attitude, a powerful, positive, grace-filled attitude, is to be passionate. What do you have a passion for? See, Captain Susan caught the passion bug for being a pilot when she was in high school. She said after that first time I got in an airplane, I was hooked. This is what I had to do. I was passionate about it. She decided, I'm going to go ahead and go to college. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to go into ROTC so when I leave college, I can go to the Air Force and become an officer and learn how to fly jets. Her passion goes deeper than that, however. Her passion went a little bit deeper because during that time period, women were not allowed to fly jets. She had to overcome that. She had to overcome everything to rise up and become a captain of one of the heaviest commercial aircrafts in the world. Let me ask you again, what are you passionate about? What is it that drives you, that says, I have a burning desire? What are you passionate about? You want to have an attitude that is powerful? Understand and identify your passion. Yet some of us don't even know what we're passionate about. Some of us are under this illusion that we must be passionate about the job we're doing right now or we're not helping. Ladies and gentlemen, let me change your thinking about that just a little bit. Let's discover what you're passionate about, because even if it's not your current job, if you know what you're passionate about, it'll help you perform in your current job because you'll see how they're connected, how one drives the other. So let me ask you, number one, to take a look back at your past and think about your childhood hopes and dreams. What did you dream about as a child? What were your hopes and dreams? That will help you identify right now what you're passionate about. Next, let's identify your personal values. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of a cautionary statement here on this. Oftentimes, our personal values are given to us between the ages of 2 and 5. So take a serious look at what do you value the most, your personal values. Look at those and make that adjustment. But once you discover what your personal values are, you'll be able to discover your passion. The last step, do a best possible self-exercise. Sit down, maybe close your eyes, and see your best self. What are your best qualities that you demonstrate on a daily basis? What is it that you truly are great at? What is the best in you as it rises up? Do the best possible self-exercise. Do all three of these together and you'll discover your passion. It will rush at you. But here's the thing. Very few of us have a passion for what we're doing now if you considered it a job. Very few of us do. I don't consider what I do now as a job. I'm passionate about it. But if what you're doing now is a job, you probably won't be passionate about it, but that doesn't really matter. Discover what you're passionate about, and then you'll be able to see that that job drives that. Maybe you have a passion for fishing. Well, maybe you start to realize that if I'm a better leader, I can make more of a difference, and I can enjoy my fishing trips more. It could be something as simple as that. Do all three of these tonight. The next part of the equation is to get in the habit of taking massive action. I do mean massive action, more than anybody else. Massive action. By the way, you will not get in the habit of doing this if you don't tie your passion to it. Take massive action and you'll get there. What action do you need to take? Number one, be who you need to be. Be that best self that you discovered. Create a plan of action should be your next step. This does take massive action because I'm going to ask you to create this plan of action in a checklist format. What are you going to do every single day? So you can just check it off the sheet. Number two, create a plan of action. Now that you know who you should be, now that you have created an action plan, it comes now time to execute on that plan. Use that checklist that you created. Use it daily. Use it in the morning. Use your checklist to create your massive action plan. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a hard one. You're going to eliminate distractions. You're going to get rid of the things that are distracting you from your focus on taking massive action. What this means, though, is you're going to stop multitasking. See, when you multitask, you're giving away your power. You're being distracted. You cannot work on 4, 5, 6 different things at the same time and expect them all to be done well. You're going to take massive action. You're going to have a lot more action. You get a lot more accomplished when you stop multitasking. Attack one thing at a time. Don't try to do 2, 3, 4, or 5. Stop this multitasking. Eliminate your distractions. Yes, and we're also talking about eliminate those distractions in your office. Okay, eliminate those. You can't watch TV, by the way, at home and work. You can't do that. Eliminate your distractions. Stop multitasking. Get some power, some grace, some energy with taking massive action. Don't be like this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, take massive action. Second homework assignment for tonight. Write down the massive action you're going to take. What massive action are you going to take? And let's keep it simple. What massive action are you going to take tomorrow morning? I have a couple of suggestions for you. The first massive action you should take is make sure you drink at least 4 to 8 ounces of water first thing out of the bed tomorrow morning. The next massive action you might want to take, reviewing your day, knowing how your day is going to be laid out. I want you, though, tonight to sit down and write down. In fact, wait a minute. Let me back that up. I want you to do this every night. Write down the massive action you're going to take the next day. Do it. Going the extra mile or two, this is so critical for your success. You must be just a little bit better than the person who's going for that same job you are going for. You must find things to study. You must find ways to get better than what you have been and to be better than your competition. I'm asking you right now to consider what you must learn to be better. So Captain Susan goes on to explain why going that extra mile or two is so important for your positive, powerful, graceful attitude, and why going that extra mile or two shaped her career. See, when she first got to the Air Force as an officer, once again, women were not allowed to fly jets. But she got into a program with 4 other women, and it was decided if these 4 women could pass the test and stay with everything, they could possibly go and learn how to fly jets. So these 4 women, plus her, 5 altogether, combined and said, here's what we're going to do. We're always going to go that extra mile. We're always going to be just a little bit better than everybody else on the test. We're always going to be just a little bit better in the simulator because we're always going to practice more. We're always going to learn more. We're always going to go that extra mile or two. I ask you again, what are you doing to go that extra mile or two? So Captain Susan said that's the habit she formed then, and it stuck with her, period. It came together on this particular July afternoon. See, this airplane was gliding toward the Pacific Ocean and had already been called out. This was an emergency situation, and we needed the Coast Guard and Navy to be dispatched to come get this airplane because we were going to be in the water soon. Now, Captain Susan realized this airplane is designed to fly on one engine, but it wasn't behaving the way it behaves in the simulator. This airplane is gliding toward the Pacific Ocean. But then she started remembering, wait a minute, this is late July. The water temperature is going to be this. The outside temperature is this. So that means when we get low enough, the thermals coming off the water should help support our wings. So then she started doing the math and reported back, say, hey, listen, if I get the airplane to this altitude, I should be able to get control of it, and we should be able to continue our 2-hour trip at this point. But we got to get to this altitude. They came back and told her, yes, we concur with your math. Even though it's a little bit lower than what we would like for you to be at, we feel like if you can get there, you should have control of this airplane and get it the rest of the way. When she got that airplane there, we had less than 6 minutes before this airplane was going to be in the water. Now, let me just throw this out to you. This airplane is so well designed that it can withstand a water landing. But it wasn't going to float on top of that water all that time. We would have to get off that airplane and wait for rescue. And that was no telling how long that was going to be. They said, Captain Susan, you reach that altitude, but if you go 1,000 feet below that, you need to prepare the plane and the passengers for the water because that's where you're going to be. Going that extra mile, learning more, so that you can prepare yourself for the worst of situations. So here is my suggestion to you. I'm going to suggest that you spend time and go that extra mile or two to, number one, lock down your communication skills. Number two, lock down that emotional intelligence. Become self-aware. Understand how to motivate other people. Number three, maybe this should have been number one, is to get industry knowledge. Understand your industry, not just the job that you're doing, but understand the ebbs and flow of your industry. Like, here's an example. Do you understand what the power of 5G is going to do to your industry? When that's fully deployed in the United States, what is 5G going to do to your industry? And then number four, your own personal development, making yourself better on the inside than what you have been. You need to go that extra mile or two to get these things accomplished. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to say it this way, you need to make sure that you're doing this every single day, hitting at least 2 of the 4 subjects every single day. Go that extra mile or two. Let's take a minute and talk about this communication piece, because communication is so critical towards your success as a leader. It's how you communicate that will let people know whether you have a positive, powerful, graceful attitude. It's also how you communicate to yourself. What is the number one key to being a great communicator? And by the way, here's a hint. That number one key will help you demonstrate to your team that you are a person with a positive, powerful attitude. What is that? I want to give you just maybe 5 seconds to think about that. Then I'll give you the answer. Are you ready for the answer? Here we go. If you want to be a world-class, great communicator, the number one thing you have to do is to stop talking. See, we talk entirely too much. I know as a coach and a trainer, I talk too much. And as a former manager, I know that you talk too much. Stop talking is your number one key, your number one tool to being a great communicator. When you decide to stop talking, your connection with people is much stronger. When you decide to stop talking and get your ego out of the way, to stop trying to be right all the time, to let people come to their own decisions, they will come to your decisions more time than not. Stop talking so much. The truth lies in the silence. Don't stay helpless. Yes, don't stay helpless. When this airplane was gliding toward the Pacific Ocean, Captain Susan could easily just decided, okay, the best thing to do is to prepare the plane and the passengers for the water. That's helpless. You have a co-worker or you have a direct report that you could just as easily say as, let me find you a different job in a different company because you need to leave here. That's being helpless. Your number one role as a leader is to develop people. You cannot be helpless and allowing that to take place. You have to go for this. You have to give it your best shot. You can't be helpless. You just cannot quit. If you decide to quit on things, you are going to create an attitude of defeat. And that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for positive, powerful, graceful attitudes, not an attitude of defeat. So don't be helpless. Think about that employee that you want to get rid of. What else can you do to help them get better on their job? How can you communicate with them better? How can you show more emotional intelligence with them and have them understand themselves better through emotional intelligence? What can you do to create more accountability with them and more clarity with them? Don't be helpless. You can control all this because you understand, as we talked about at the very start of the day, you can understand this because it is about what you do, what you don't do, and how you react. And that's where you have 100% responsibility. And that alone will prevent you from being helpless. You want to have a great, positive, powerful, graceful attitude? Start to expect results. Expect positive results. Now, Captain Susan's a lady who's maybe all of 5'5", maybe 5'6" tall, red hair, fiery attitude. But you know what stands out about her sometimes? She has a potty mouth. Yep, a potty mouth. In fact, sometimes you think she should have been in the Navy instead of the Air Force. But she set an expectation when this airplane first got in trouble. And her expectation was when she turned to her first officer and said, listen, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to clean this up for you so you don't get offended. We're going to park this thing at the blankety blank gate. We're going to park it at the blankety blank gate. You got it. I don't want to hear anything else. We're parking it at the gate. Positive expectations. We're not going to park it in the Pacific Ocean. We're going to park this plane at the gate. I'm asking you, when you're dealing with a person on your team, a direct report, do you have positive expectations for them? Do you set results that are positive, that are powerful, that are graceful? Maybe you got to get this person to start coming to work on time. Maybe you should approach this meeting at the start that my result here is going to be this person is going to start coming on time. I expect this result. I'm not selling for anything else. I'm parking it at the gate. It became clear we were going to make it to Kona. That 2 hours turned into 2 hours and 45 minutes roughly because we did slow down that much. The airline had reached out to Kona and said this to them. We are sorry, but we're going to have. See, there was no maybe. It said we're going to have a major aircraft mishap with casualties. We're sorry, but it's going to happen. So they weren't aware of what Captain Susan's expectation was and how she's going to make this happen. But she said she's parking her plane at the gate. But here's something really powerful. When the word came out that we're going to have a major aircraft mishap, the hospital in Kona said, well, here's my expectation. If this is going to happen, we're going to show the world how to handle it, how to behave. We're going to show the world. Now, that is a powerful expectation, make no doubt about it. We're going to show the world. Now, this was a smaller hospital. They realized they probably didn't have enough doctors and nurses for this. So they reached out to every hospital of all the neighboring islands and said, put them on planes, get them here. We're going to need their help. They also realized the hospital probably did not have enough beds to handle all 355 people coming off this airplane. So they said, okay, let's do this. Let's build tents in our parking lot to handle this. Build some tents in the parking lot to handle this. They built a tent to triage people. As we came off the plane, we got triage. It was decided we needed surgery, but all the surgery rooms were filled up. They had a tent to hold those who had to wait for surgery. They had a tent for those who needed the jet fuel washed off. They had a tent for the burn victims. They had a tent for the dead bodies, all built up in the parking lot. If it's going to happen on our watch, we're going to show the world how to behave. Yet Captain Susan's expectations, her expected results were simply this. I'm parking it at the gate. I come back to you and ask you, what are your expectations for your career? Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a bunch of fluff. This is a science. When you set expectations, it's a science. You have something in you called the reticular activating system. And when you use this, it creates success. Your reticular activating system controls sleeping, walking, your tension. It also controls like what's on the top of your mind. So like it'll filter out your breathing when you don't need to be worried about it, or how fast your heart's beating when you don't need to be worried about it. It creates blind spots so that you're not constantly losing focus. It is your executive assistant. Why is it so important to expect results? Because your reticular activating system, your RAS, helps you. It helps you because it allows you to focus on what you value. Captain Susan valued parking her plane at the gate. Allow her to focus on that, not on the stress of the situation. It allows you to perceive thoughts. In other words, it allows you to start thinking about what the solution should be, not what the problem is. And it will support you when you set your goals. This is part of the reason why I'm so demanding about goal setting. This is why I've written 2 books about the power of goal setting, because you absolutely have to set goals and allow your RAS to help you get there. The next part of building a positive, powerful, graceful attitude that you can apply every day is to remember to be flexible every single day. You got to be flexible every single day. Think about this. Changing from Honolulu to Kona for landing, the difference in runways 12,312 feet was available in Honolulu, while only 5,679 feet were available in Kona. No wonder they declared an emergency and said we are going to have a major aircraft mishap. It wasn't a surprise. However, what wasn't going to be flexible was Captain Susan's expectation of she's parking her blankety blank plane at the gate. She was not going to be flexible on that. That was the bottom line, parking it at the gate. Her flexibility came in her decision on how to park it at the gate, how to get it there. So she decided, instead of doing the normal landing, because normal landing is you glide into the runway, she decided what most people call a soft landing to execute a soft landing. Now, the soft landing means that about 2 to 3 feet above the runway, you have the plane stop flying. It just will no longer fly, and it just drops to the ground. Danger with this. If you have it drop too soon to the ground, let's say you're 30 feet above or 20 feet above or 10 feet above the runway, and the plane is no longer airworthy and flops to the ground, you'll crack it open like an egg. If you get there going too fast, you're going to bounce up and cause problems for yourself. There's issues with this soft landing. So there's pictures of our aircraft as we're on final, but I personally don't know how far we were away from the runway. I know we were close because you can see the water coming up underneath the wings. So, Kona is wider than runway. It's just like that. So we were close. But the other danger is you get the nose up really high up in the air, so all the airspeed bleeds off, and you got to set your target to know where you're going to put those two wheels down on. The nose is so high up in the air, however, if you're looking at this airplane, you're thinking this airplane is taking off too steep. Part of that challenge is if the tail of the airplane gets too low, gets beneath the wheels, that's going to hit the ground first, and then it'll cause the nose to dive into the runway. And that plane could have exploded and we would have died on that end of the runway. That had to be balanced out. Here's what was unique. When you look at the picture, you would see that the tail of the airplane is beneath the wheels already. But that balanced back out, which was perfect. Again, remember I told you about if you hit it too fast, you bounce? There was an incident maybe a year ago, depending on when you listen to this, with an aircraft in Russia was trying to execute the soft landing. When they got to the runway, the plane wasn't ready to stop flying. It still wanted to fly. So when those back two wheels touched the ground, it bounced the plane back up. The tail of the airplane dipped down, hit the runway, and that part caught on fire and exploded as the airplane nosedived into the runway. You saw that on video. That's the danger of this soft landing. You have to be flexible because she said, you know what, I got to do this. Now the airline told her, hey, understand, if that's your best plan, then go for it because this is your plane, Captain. You can either die on that end of the runway or the other end if you go off. It's your choice. Your plane. Are you flexible enough? Are you a strong enough leader? Do you have a strong enough, positive, powerful, graceful attitude to make a life and death decision like that? I'm going to do a soft landing. Let me add another piece of this flexibility. When you raise the nose of the airplane up this high, you cannot see your target on the ground. You have to trust in the procedure. You have to trust in it. You, as a leader, have to trust in that yourself. You, as a leader, you must be flexible, but you also have to understand your flexibility does not take away from your accountability. But you have to be flexible at reaching that accountability. You may not be able to see the target or completely understand why HR has the policies and procedures in place that they do. But you still must have that ability to follow through with those processes, even though you don't quite understand it or see how it works. You must have the process and the ability and the flexibility to hold people accountable in a way that they need to be held accountable so they're productive, they're powerful. When you're flexible, you have this attitude of positive, powerful, and grace. Don't give up your goals, but be flexible in how you reach your goals. Ladies and gentlemen, a powerful, graceful attitude also means you don't complain. Complainers are never considered to have great attitudes. If you want to be a great leader, you want to have a positive, powerful attitude, then don't complain. And ladies and gentlemen, let me stress this. And don't even complain to yourself. When you catch yourself complaining to yourself about something, ask yourself a better question. Maybe that better question is, what can I do about it? So when the problems first started to be noticed and they realized that they were in as much trouble as they were in, the first officer started to complain to Captain Susan. And Captain Susan put up with it for a little bit, but here's what she said. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've already explained to you the scientific term for her mouth. She has a potty mouth, so I'll clean this up too. But the first officer's complaining, oh my gosh, didn't they know what they're doing? Were they drunk there? Didn't they check this? I mean, that's just a simple thing to check. They could kill all of us on this airplane. What's wrong with them? She said, I finally turned around to him and said, shut the blank up. I don't want to hear anything else from you. No more complaints. The only thing I want to hear from you is a solution to the problem. How are we going to put this plane on the ground and park this blankety blank plane at the gate? Ask yourself a better question. How are you going to solve this problem? Ask yourself that. Do not go complain to your superior about this, unless, of course, you have a plan of action, a plan of how to get it accomplished. 2, that you have the documentation necessary to prove your case, not just what you think, but the documentation for it. See, don't forget, you go that extra mile or two, and that extra mile or two in this case requires that it's documented. Let's talk about going that extra mile or two. You're going to create documentation that shows why you want to make this change. Instead of complaining, you're going to show why and talk about why you want to make this change. But here comes the extra mile or two. You're going to create an Excel spreadsheet when you can that will show the cost of these changes, the cost of not taking action and the cost of taking action. You're going to create a chart that shows 1, 3, and 5 years of cost for the change, and then what it's going to cost you if you don't make that change. Think about this. As a person of high power attitude, you're not only showing up with a change for the better, but you're showing up with proof as to why that change should be done. Your stakeholders will all be impressed and think of you as a person who can take action, that has an attitude that is powerful and filled with grace. Bring it all together. So as you recall, we're on our final approach to the runway. The nose of the aircraft is up really high. The aircraft is sluggish because there's not enough air rolling over the wings anymore. So it's hard to control. But we're coming down toward the runway in a configuration that has been called a soft landing, which we all know is anything but a soft landing. Miss that landing, you're going to die. Can't see the target anymore. Her attitude of, I'm parking this plane at the gate. Her attitude saying, I'm not going to allow you to complain anymore. We're going to find solutions. Okay? I'm passionate about what I'm doing, so I'm going to park my plane at the gate. So we're coming toward this runway. Now, here's me. This is the geek in me showing up just big time. Instead of doing what I was told to do, I decided to look out my window. Now, as the plane gets to the runway, it does stop flying about maybe 2 to 3 feet above the runway. It's no longer airworthy, so the plane touches the runway. The second, the back two wheels are on the ground. By the way, her target was to put this plane down on every inch of usable runway, so she wanted this airplane down at the threshold. When that threshold came up, she wanted that plane down. And I know she noted because there was 4 news helicopters who videotaped the landing, and you could see from the news reels the puff of smoke when those back set of wheels touched the ground, and that was that split second we crossed that threshold. The back two wheels are on the ground. Perfect targeting. And remember, she couldn't see her target, but it was perfect. She trusted the process. Those back two wheels on the ground, the good engine remain comes up in full on reverse. That happened to be on my side of the airplane, and I never heard that generation of aircraft with an engine coming up that hard. I need for you to remember something though. Even though the airplane is no longer airworthy, it is still moving about 152 miles an hour forward. One engine trying to reverse the airplane. So think about this. You got one engine driving backwards, the rest of the plane trying to drive forward. It now becomes a war. A war of, okay, I don't want this plane to start cartwheeling down the runway. We got to fight it. So they're fighting it all the way down the runway. But remember what I said I was doing? I had decided to sit up and look out of my window. This airplane is struggling to get its nose down to the ground. It is hard. You hear the engine winding up, and you feel the fight. The airplane almost starting to vibrate and shake a little bit. But as the nose wheel finally touches the ground, the vibrations, the shaking of this airplane became hot and heavy. So hot and heavy, overhead bins started to pop open. We were shaking that hard coming down the runway, vibrating that hard coming down the runway. I'm looking out my window, by the way, to see that at every taxiway, there was a fire truck or ambulance or some kind of equipment there. As we pass, they come on the runway to start chasing us down the runway. So remember, this runway was only 5,900 feet long when they normally put this plane down on a 12,000-foot runway. So the fear was that the plane may not be able to have the opportunity to stop. Should be able to, but may not be able to stop in time to prevent it from going off the other edge and killing us. Remember, this was declared to be an emergency, and they had reached out and said, we're going to have a major aircraft mishap, and it's going to have casualties. So with this said, these fire trucks, ambulances, all these things started chasing us down the runway so that if we didn't get stopped, they'd be there. You hear this airplane struggling and running, but we are starting to slow down to the point where the captain, Susan, felt like it was okay to put on the brakes. But she didn't just tap the brakes. She put those brakes on and she locked those brakes. Remember what I told you I was doing? I was sitting up looking out my window. Not much longer. I went head first into the seat in front of me so hard as this airplane's trying to get stopped. I went so hard in that seat in front of me. I remember hitting my head on the seat, sitting back up and rubbing it and saying, you know what? I think I'll listen from now on. Had I not had my seatbelt on, I might have went through the seat in front of me. That's how hard this airplane is trying to get stopped. Now, I said I felt like I could smell the brakes on fire. Well, in conversation with the captain later on, she said, no, Glenn, it's just your imagination. The brakes were hot, but you couldn't smell them inside the airplane. Well, I still think I did. Yeah, but we'll take her word for it. Maybe I didn't. But as this airplane is struggling to get to stop, you hear the brakes on, you feel the brakes on, and I'm not the only person, by the way, who had decided to sit up. Now you hear people screaming for help. Somebody help us. Oh, God, somebody help us. Screaming for help. The airplane starts to slow down, slow down, slow down. All of a sudden, the brakes pop loose. Now, I knew that whenever those brakes popped loose, we were okay. Because she wouldn't have released those brakes had we not been able to get stopped before the runway. She would have probably kept those on the whole way. Again, in conversation with Captain Susan, she goes, no, you're kind of a nerd, but you don't have that one right. We would have had to release the brakes anyway because it would have gotten too hot, and we didn't want those to catch on fire. But yeah, we released the brakes because we were getting ready to get stopped. We were going to stop. The plane stopped. Now, here's what was really kind of unique about this. When this plane stopped on the runway, this airplane was ghostly quiet. There was no applauding like you see on TV. There was no one talking. In fact, I think we didn't talk for a good 45 minutes even after we got off the airplane. Because remember, we should have died twice that day. We were in that position where we could have died twice that day. Nobody was saying a word. The plane was ghostly quiet. We're sitting there on the runway, and I don't know how long we sat there. All time kind of disappeared. But I'm still kind of now looking out the window, and I see that we're kind of surrounded by fire trucks and ambulances, and pretty soon they start to pull off and pull away from us. There's a picture that shows that there's still 2 fire trucks and maybe 3 fire trucks sitting on the tail of the aircraft, sitting there because those brakes were extremely hot. But they were sitting there, and all of a sudden the good engine comes back up, and we start to move. We make a left turn, then another left turn, go up the taxiway for a little while, make a right turn, then another left turn. Interesting enough, you know what happened? Captain Susan parked her blankety-blank plane at the gate, despite all odds. It was reported that at the hospital went up in cheers, despite the odds, despite being told they're going to have a major aircraft mishap. It's going to have casualties in it. They went up in cheers and upheld her, without even meeting her yet, as a hero, and she was a hero. Interesting side story. So Captain Susan said after they sat there and checked everything out, it took them a little while. She said it wasn't all that long, but it took some time. They decided, okay, we're going to move. That's what her and her co-pilot decided to do. In the meantime, they had put out one of those little trucks to come up and get her and started to hook her up to tow her in. She said she beeped on the intercom. They have a little horn that beeps on the intercom, So the guy came up and got on the headset, and she said, move that blankety blank thing out of the way or I'll run it over, because you know what? I parked my plane at the gate. Bring it all together. How does this relate to you having a positive attitude and being a great leader? Let's talk about that. Let's first look at this from your morning ritual perspective. Number 1, don't be helpless. Don't be the victim. Don't say I need an extra 15 minutes of sleep tonight because I stayed up too late last night. Don't let your emotions control you. Don't be helpless. Decide to set your alarm clock tomorrow morning for 15 minutes ahead of what you normally get up. If you get up at 5:30, you set your alarm clock for 5:15. Don't be helpless. Take control of that and be passionate about the day. So that's number 2. Be passionate about the day. And here's how you're going to do this. Every single morning as your feet hit the floor, you say one word, and that one word is yes. Make that part of your morning ritual. Yes to having a great day. You're going to take massive action. My first suggestion for massive action, believe it or not, is to drink 4 to 8 ounces of water every single morning. That's action that most people don't take. You take that massive action. Then if you feel like exercising, that's great. That would be going the extra mile or two. Get a 30-minute or 15 or 20 minutes of exercise in. Go that extra mile or two. The next morning ritual you want to encompass is expecting results. I want you to get in the habit of charting out your top 3 activities every single morning and see yourself, expect from yourself to have great positive results. See yourself having positive results, expect it. Know you're going to have great results. Every single morning, take the time to write down your top 3 activities for the day. And then, as you see yourself getting those results, understand you're going to see yourself being flexible. I'm going to suggest a metaphor for that. I'm going to suggest that you find a way to stretch your muscles. Maybe you've already exercised, but now I want you to find a way to stretch and become flexible with your muscles. Okay? And then the last morning ritual I want you to put into place is don't complain about getting up early. Don't complain about the weather being too hot or too cold. Don't complain about being tired. Don't complain about getting a lack of sleep. Just don't complain. Your last step is not to complain. So in a nutshell, don't be helpless. Don't let your emotions control you. You're not helpless. Say yes. Be passionate. Say yes as your feet hit the floor. Take massive action. Drink that glass of water. Go that extra mile. Maybe do a little more exercise than what you normally do. Maybe do what most people don't do, and that's plan your day, because that will take care of the next one, and that will allow you to expect positive, powerful results. Okay? I want you to not only expect them, I want you to feel them and see positive, powerful results. Be flexible. Use that metaphor of stretching your muscles. If it's nothing more than trying to touch your toes, use that metaphor to say, I'm going to be flexible throughout the day. I'm going to get my results, but I may have to try different ways. I may have to try different communication styles. I may have to try something different. And then make it a morning ritual not to complain about anything. In fact, here's an extra step for that morning ritual. Don't complain. Don't complain about anything for the next hour. That first hour, don't complain about the weather or anything. Muscle aches, pains in the body, don't complain. Great. Let us now talk about bringing this all together for your team or for your professional career. Remember this. You could have 300 straight days of great attitude, being powerful, being productive. But on that 301st day, if you have a poor attitude, what has happened to the other 300 days? They have gone away. They don't exist. You're going to be labeled as someone who has a poor attitude. I want you to get in the habit of taking each one of these components and putting it in place. I want you to remember that you are 100% responsible for what you do, what you do not do, and how you respond to what has happened. Those things you have completely in your control. You have to do this. You want to have a great attitude with your team, with your career? You cannot be helpless. Remember, you're going to have one or two people in your career that you don't like, that you wish would just quit the team, that you just say they don't fit. You're going to say, I have some kind of personality conflict with that. What you're saying when you do that is you're making yourself the victim. You're the one being helpless. You have to know that I'm not going to be helpless and I'm going to take control of this situation. And the only way that's going to happen is when you decide that I have passion, that I'm passionate. Okay, now some of us are lucky enough to be passionate for the jobs that we're doing. That drives us. But I want to go to those of you, once again, who are not passionate about the job you're doing. Maybe you have a passion for something else. Maybe you have a passion for playing an instrument. Maybe you have a passion for something totally off the wall. Whatever that passion is, I want you to identify that, because it'll be really easy for you to connect that passion. So you have a passion for playing the piano. It's really easy to connect that to the job, because you wouldn't have the time or the money to take lessons or to buy the equipment or do anything great on the piano if you did not do the best you could do on this job. Okay, you will not be able to retire if you have a passion for retiring and traveling. You won't be able to do that if you don't connect that passion for traveling to your passion for the job. You have to connect those two. You will connect those two, but it all begins by being passionate. It is all the better if you can be passionate about what you're doing. So, for example, are you passionate about helping others? If you're in a nonprofit sector, you probably are passionate about helping others. But even if you're not in the nonprofit sector, are you passionate about making your company better, making the team better, keeping your company alive, alert, awake, and enthusiastic in the corporate world? Do you have a passion for that? From now on, you are going to take massive action. Massive action means you're going to do more work than what you're used to doing. But the more work you do, the more often you do it, the better you're going to get to do it. So it's not going to take up that much more time. Massive action means looking for the right things to do, to read, to be about. Massive action. Okay, so let's say with your team, you have some folks who are just not getting it. You're going to take massive action to help them learn more. But inside that massive action, by the way, you may have to delegate some of these things. But you're going to take massive action. Everybody in your team knows that if there's a problem coming up, you're going to find a way to fix it, because in the back of their mind, they know you take massive action. Going that extra mile or two, ladies and gentlemen, go that extra mile or two to make yourself better. Learn about your industry. Go get reports. Learn about your industry. Get better. You don't know how to use Excel? Learn to use Excel. Get great at Excel. Start creating reports, charts, graphs, everything that you can, so that you can go that extra mile or two. Your job, because you take massive action and want to go that extra mile or two, your job is for that next interview, you know more about that job and that position than the person interviewing you for that job and position, period. When it comes to your team, you're going to expect results. You're going to set the bar higher than the norm, because you expect positive results from your team. Don't worry about it. As long as you have a positive, powerful attitude, your team will strive to reach that higher goal than the other team. You'll have higher expectations because you know they're going to get there. You'll set the bar higher because you know you're going to get there, which means you set the bar higher for yourself. Okay, you will set the bar higher for yourself for all of these. You're going to expect results because you see those results. You feel the results. You take that science of your RAS, your RAS system. You take that science, and you know that that's the way it works. So you can expect positive, powerful, graceful results. While you're expecting those results, though, you're fully aware that you got to be flexible. You have to be totally flexible in what you have to do. Realizing, okay, this way is not going to quite work, but I can try this way. My favorite metaphor for this is the communication process. You may communicate as a commander, but you have someone on your team that communicates as a relator. You're going to be flexible and communicate with them as a relator instead of being who you normally are because you're flexible. Then the last one, we don't complain anymore. We provide solutions. You have something to complain about, provide a solution. Okay, something is not right, something is not perfect with the way you want it to happen on the job, the policy, the procedure is not there. You don't complain, you bring solutions. By the way, I'm sure I don't have to say this, but let's just say it. You never complain about anything to the people who report to you. You don't complain, period. Period. You don't complain to the people who have the same position as you, same level as you, your peers. You don't complain to them. Complaining to those two groups does no good. But if you're going to complain, you're going to complain with a plan, with documentation that includes spreadsheets, and you're going to complain when you have a solution for that complaint. So you're not complaining, you're providing a solution. So don't complain. That's how you bring this all together on your team. Thank you for allowing me to spend some time with you today. I am passionate about what we do, and I hope that you felt some of that passion. I hope that you will take these principles taught to me by Captain Susan, a captain on one of the heaviest commercial aircrafts in the world who was directly responsible for saving my life that day along with 355 others. The reason why I love that story is that you may be sitting there saying, well, she had to do that. I'm saying you, as a leader, have to have the passion, the power of a positive attitude. You're responsible for more than she was. She had 355 people at one time, but you have a team of people who come and work with you every single day, who are relying upon you to help them become better people, help them become better citizens, corporate citizens, to help them with their families, help them to be better examples. Think about it. You have an employee who comes to work late, and they continue to come to work late, and because you have a powerful, positive attitude, you start to help them become better corporate citizens. So therefore, they get to work on time. They're not job hunting. They're serious about their job. Their life gets better. They maybe even have enough money because they've got stable to help their kids go to college, which they never had the opportunity to do. Now they go to college, their kids are better. You, as a leader, have a generational challenge to help people. I want you to feel that passion. You, as a leader, have a generational knowledge to help people. Captain Susan had this ability to save all of our lives that day. And one thing I would tell her years after that fact, if she hadn't have done that, I would have never met that most important person in my life now. I would not have been there when my daughter brought to me my grandson. When that boy came into the world, I realized how beautiful my daughter was for doing this. And I realized I have a grandson. And I realized I have passion for what I have to do. You have passion for what you have to do. Captain Susan has passion for what they have to do, but it all begins with having a positive attitude. And please don't forget the underlying operating system. You're responsible, 100% responsible for what you do, what you do not do, and how you react to things. That's what you're responsible for. Once again, thank you very much for taking the time with us today. Love it. Have a great day.
This is a Touchstone Publishers presentation, your trusted source of leadership knowledge.